Thank you guys, we'll get started. Can you see my screen? Okay. Let me go back where we started. Okay. So we were looking at stash command last week. Okay. It's powered up. Okay. Give me a minute, please. So manual location. No, I didn't touch anything. Just give me a minute. There is a network issue. Give me a minute, please. Yes. Finish it. So we seen stash commands and I got some issue with the Visual Studio, right? I will tell you why it happened. I was having both TFS and as well as Git on my laptops. And internally, when I opened my Visual Studio, it changed to the Team Foundation Server plugin actually. I will show you actually. So I was thinking why it changed. But sometimes it happens because it's a single IDE connecting to multiple version control systems. Right? So before getting into, I will show you where it happens actually. Let's open Visual Studio. Uh, Let me close this. So I was figuring out actually when I went to my physical folder, right? I was seeing instead of Git files, the hidden Git files, I was seeing a TFS related extensions, hidden files. Then that's where I did okay. It pointed to the other version control system. That's where I was having the issue. So we were using this web application 6, right? Let's open it first. So whenever your version control system changes, right, the easiest way that you can troubleshoot is you have these tools and then options. So so basically these options contains all the options related to your IDE. So you scroll down and look for a source control. Okay, you have this source control and a plugin selection. So yesterday it was pointing to Visual Studio Team Foundation server somehow. I don't know. It went in the background. So then I changed it to the Git. It started working. So that's the reason when I was not, I was moving there and here, right? It automatically switched to Git because I opened one another project which was a Git and then closed it, opened the current one Weber. So it automatically pointed to Git. But you don't need to do all the troubleshooting. You just come here and check the plugin selection whether it is Git or Team Foundation. If at all you get into some issues. Okay. So let's go and continue where we stopped. So Solution Explorer, we were looking at the stash commands, right? Let's spend another 5 minutes on the stash and we'll go on to the other commands actually. So first let me go to my portal, DevOps portal. So what I do now, I will log in to the DevOps portal. with a different account, because from the Visual Studio I'm using one account for the Git, right, Azure repos. Since I cannot replicate two different things on my PC, what I do, from IDE also we can make code changes. The only difference that just looks like a text file and you will not have any IntelliSense. The moment IntelliSense means the moment you give some A, B, C or some tab, right, you will get all the relevant commands. That's the IntelliSense. You will not have the IntelliSense on the portal because that is just a notepad kind, but you have the IntelliSense in the Visual Studio. Since I'm not going to do any extensive code changes, I don't need any IntelliSense. What I do, I'll just go and add some comments into the code files from the portal as a different user, and do some changes from the Visual Studio as a different user. That means I am mimicking the environment, multi-user environment or multi-developers working on the same project. Okay, first we will finish the stash commands and then get into that mode actually. Okay, let me log into dev.azure.com. Again went off. No, I actually shared it. I'm just logging into the portal, that's okay. So presently I use my current user ID only, what I'm using from the Visual Studio. So let's connect. Bear with me guys, there is some issues in the classroom, so that's where I'm just stopping here and there. I'm just logging into the repos. So my Azure DevOps organization and my project is Web Application 6. This is my Azure DevOps project, and under that I have the repos, the files, and I opened the same thing from my Visual Studio. Give me a minute guys. You can't see, right? That's a problem with power only, right? There are some power issues going on in the classroom, so I'm not able to present it to the other people. Please bear with me. I think there is issue. You don't mind, can you come here? If there is a for today we will just okay. Power connector. Touch it, man. Okay, thank you. So we were looking at that stash command. So the scenario is the developer is already working on some requirement. So let us say, let's open this home controller and say we'll make some changes working on requirement 1. Okay, and then let's save it And then also I made some changes to some other files as well. Let us say web.config. And then I will go and add some keys, or let me copy paste it to save the time. Take something. I'm just trying to, showing how a developer works. So you may think that why should you know it actually? Okay. Uh, as a DevOps engineer, obviously you are not going to write code in all the programming languages, but when you are doing the build and deployments, right? You need to make some configuration stuff using web.config or app.config. So you may get into the similar issues what a developer get into. You will be working on this one, but you might be required to work on some other thing as well. Okay. So, and also most of the times what happens, if developer doesn't know how to work with a source control management system or anything, right? They will come and ask the DevOps guy only. Okay, I'm not able to work with the SCM. It is not connecting. Okay, I am working on this one, but it is not reflecting. Okay, now I want to save this or commit these things. I don't know how to do. So that's where even project manager comes. Okay, go and talk to the SCM administrator. So basically, older days, right? You will have a one person for each role. Now it is one person for all the roles. So they basically go and ask the SCM administrator, means source control management administrator. Now, since we are in the DevOps, they will ask the DevOps guy actually. Okay. So that's the reason. Though you don't work on the code, you need to know all these things. You should be able to suggest them. Okay, this is how you need to work. I mean how you use a SQL. Okay. Now I made two changes to my files. Okay, one is in homecontroller.cs. Okay, I written some comment working on requirement, and in the web.config I added one more line. Okay, so let us say that this is been done on one day, and the next day I was asked to work on some other bug fix actually. So what happens? Since this whatever the code I am developing is not completed, okay, now the bug fix is in think like that. This is not completed. This requirement development is not completed. This is off and done. Now my bug fix is in a different file actually. I have to go and add some code to some different file. Okay, let us assume that. So I'm just going to add bug fix. Now the bug fix is done. Now I should be able to push only my bug fix code to the environment, not the code that I written in the other two files, because that is not completed. So in traditionally, if you go and commit, what happens? The entire stuff, all the changes that are available that you made so far will be committed. That means the bug fix code and the code that is not completed. So you fixed one bug and it will introduce some other bugs, because the code which is not completed are also pushed to the environments. So you need to avoid it. So traditionally, as we discussed, you will make a backup of these files and you start deleting the off code and then do the bug fix and then push it. But you can't do it all the ways. Now you are having all the tools. Right? Let's use this luxury actually. So first, let's do this one. Okay, some test. Can you say test? I'm just going to, for that time being, I'm pushing, I'm committing my code and then pushing this code to the remote repository. So along with my bug fix, some erroneous code also went. So it screwed my system. Okay. So let's verify if that had come here or not. So this is a web application 6. And then I made some change to web config. This is the change I added. Okay. If you want, if you can't read everything, right, you can simply look at the history as well. So I just done just now actually. Okay. And then I also made some change to my home controller.cs. Okay, contents. What I added, working on requirement one. I don't want this code to be uploaded to my source control management. Okay, so the bug fix went and the unnecessary code also went. So it creates problems. This is where your stash command comes into picture. Now let's go and do some more stuff in the same way. Let's go to Solution Explorer. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a new file. Now we'll work on the stash command actually. Okay, let's go and add a new controller. Just give anything actually. I'm not writing any code, so it's a default code. I'm just giving the name as a default controller. Let's leave it. So a new file is being created. You see the plus symbol here. That means this is still not added to the source control. Okay, and I'm going to make some change to my home controller again. I'm saying another comment, working on requirement 2, and I delete this one actually, the first comment. So multiple changes I'm doing. Okay, just save it. So one new file is being added, one change is being added to the control. Now after one day, some manager came and asked me, okay, hey, stop the work what you are doing, let's do this bug fix. Okay, this is one of the scenarios. Now what I am going to do, you see there is a plus symbol here as well. I mean a tick symbol. That means this is being edited because a new file is being added. The .cs project also, edited actually automatically. So if there is a tick symbol like this, that means you made some modification to the file. So we need to check in. So when I'm checking and committing, so what I'm going to do, let's go and commit. So the commit is in the source control. Let's go and commit and give some comment, test stash something. So now what I'm going to do, instead of selecting this commit all and push, since I want to preserve these changes, but I don't want these things on the source control. Now I'm going to do a stash all and keep stashed. You see there will be a change. Now a stash is being created. Now under stashes section, you see a stash is being created with the 0 as index, and this test stash is the comment what I given actually. Basically you give some identification, right? If you are having n number of stashes, then you should be able to identify which one you created or something. Okay, now let's close this. Now let's observe our solution explorer. If you see our solution explorer, right, I created one file, right? It is disappeared here. Yeah, default controller, it is disappeared. When I did the stash and I selected the second option, stash and stashed, the file itself is disappeared from here. Okay, that is the first observation you can see. And again, if you go to home control, if you open this one, I added one more comment here, right, under this one. So what are all the changes you made to these files before stash? They disappear from your visible code actually, but this is somewhere on your local system which you don't know. Okay, the reason, someone don't want to confuse you basically when you are checking in. So now you can say that you haven't started anything and you are going to do a bug fixing. So it is very clear to you what you are committing now. Now let's go and do the bug fixing. For the bug fixing, what I'm going to do, so I open one more file. Okay, bug fixing done. I mean, that means I written some code actually. Okay, now let's go and save it. Let's go and check in this one. Either you can commit, you can click on anywhere actually. If it is a project level, all the changes in your project will be checked in. If it is only file level, you can go and right click on the file and then commit and then give some comment, bug fix, and then what I'm going to do, commit all and push. That's it, it's pushing. Okay, done. Now let's go and verify where I done this change. That is in filter config.cs. Let's go to app start and then filter config.cs. So bug fix is done. So let's verify if the other code is being checked in. You see there is no default controller.cs, and if I open home controller, I see only one comment here. There is another comment as well. That means whatever is stashed is not checked in or the committed. Only the bug fix is being committed. Now my bug fixing is done. Now I can continue with my code, right? How I can continue? So since you written thousands of lines of code or hundreds of lines of code, you don't want to go to your backups and copy paste it. Obviously, you will make mistakes. You cannot remember. Even though you write one big Excel file also, you cannot remember actually. Okay. Now go to Solution Explorer. Sorry, Team. So you don't see those new files, etc. What I'm going to do, open Team Explorer and click on Home button to go to all the options. Click on Changes in order to see your stashes. Okay. You have one stash. Just right click. There are options called apply and pop up. Okay, I will show you what is I will show the difference what is apply and pop up, but both will do a similar thing. But it's like, in order to push your code to the source control management, what you are doing, you can do commit and then you can do push. The other one way is directly click on sync. One command will do two activities, or you use two commands to push your code. This is all right. Similarly, there is a similarity between apply and pop up, but first see it actually. Let's apply actually. When I apply it, come back. It had come back. You see my default controller.cs, whatever is stashed again is appearing in my source control, solution control. I not made any change, right? It is still under no, I mean not committed, and I made some change to home controller requirement one, and what I done, another one, filter config bug fix system. So my bug fix is there, my older changes is there before the bug fix. Now I can go and continue my work. Let us say go to your home controller and say requirement 2 is done. That's it. Means I am continuing my coding actually. Let's go on. I'm just checking in the entire. So guys, I might be using check-in or commit, whatever it is, but end of the day it is pushing code to your remote repository. Just click on commit, and now stash done. Just some comment. Now select commit all and push. Okay, done. My changes have been pushed to the source control or source control management tool, whatever it is. Okay, now let's go and click on changes. You remember this, I pushed my code, that means the stash code as well, but I still see stash under stash section. Don't worry about it, we'll explain that now. So let's go back and see if our changes have been uploaded here or not, or pushed. Let's refresh it. Right now you have home controller.cs, right? Let's refresh it. So the default controller has come, and then we also made some change to home controller, that is requirement done. So all my stash changes have come actually. Okay, this is how you do stashing, and then you can continue your work by clicking by using the command apply. Okay, now the difference, right? There is another command, right? Pop. Okay, so now I'm done with my changes, right? I no longer needed this stash in my history. So how I can do, I can simply drop it actually. I can either, you can drop all, if you are having a number of stashes, you can click on drop all, or you can click on single one, you can drop it. Done. Now if I go on changes, okay, my stashes have been committed, and I don't have the history of my stashes as well. So there will be another scenario. Okay, you may need to revisit your changes in future. Let us say somebody said, hey, you done bug fixing, after that you applied stash. Okay, but you did not do it correctly. Some argument may come. You want to see the list of stashes. Okay, that's where you can you don't want to drop it actually. So if you use that apply, right, it will not drop. That's what we see. So we manually went ahead and dropped it. For future references, we don't want to drop it. But if you are working in a good environment or something, okay, you can use pop actually. Pop means it will drop it as well. Okay, let's do a quickly one. Okay, so let's make some changes. So what I'm going to do, pop example. Okay, I made some change here. Okay, let's make it only one change. We don't need to do multiple things. Okay, now what I'm going to do, when I'm committing, and just give comment pop example. You can give any comment, and instead of committing, I'm saying stash. You can stash it. Now a stash is being added. Now I'll go and work on any bug fix. So let's open any bug fix. I'll add some comment here. Bug fix 2. Let's save it, and then now commit this. Done, and then commit all and push. Then I made the change in bundle config.cs. Let's go and look into app start, and then bundle config.cs. Yeah, the comment has come. Okay, the other comments, the other changes haven't come, so it is still a requirement to done actually. Okay, if I go back to my solution explorer, and then now I need to get it back, right? I need to work on the stashes. Now how you go? You go to team explorer, and then click on home button. If you are in a different category, click on changes. Now you have this pop-up. This is a stash. Instead of selecting apply, select pop actually. Okay, now I should be able to make changes. Go to solution explorer. Now see, earlier it was locked, right? Now it is reverted to my old version, home controller.cs. Open this. My other comment has come here. Now let's continue. I'm just adding one more comment here. Save it, and then now go ahead and commit. Done. Let's give some comment. Done. Commit all and push. Now you see the changes. Click on home button, click on changes. You see there are no stashes. Earlier what we done, we manually went there and deleted the stash actually. So this is the difference. I mean, different scenarios, different commands. But end of the day, it's like, doing multiple activities for one purpose, or doing, one click for multiple activities. So this is the difference between your stashes, and one of the scenario to use stashes, working on bug fix, keeping the current work done in a different way like this. You will get a different changes. We will use the same stash stuff when we work with the branches as well. Okay, right. Let's get into the okay. I think we need to check the difference between pull and fetch as well. We were talking about what's the difference between pull and fetch, right? So in English, both mean the same, right? Whether it is pull or fetch, both are same only. But there is a minor difference between pull and fetch. I will show you what is that. Okay. Now let's assume that my Visual Studio or my repository is connected using Sureka K86, which is my developer ID to connect to the SCM. There might be other developers. Right? There will be other developers who work on that code. So let's get into that scenario. So for that, what I'm doing, I'm logging out from this one, and I'm switching to this guy. I mean, because I have access. He is another developer who is having access to this web application 6 code actually. Since these are the simple changes, I'm just going to do these changes on the portal. Okay. Otherwise, what happens? I have to open two Visual Studios, and with the two different logins, it will not work or it may not. I mean, so why to make confusion? Let's log in. So the difference between pull and fetch is when you click on pull, right, it will pull all the code from the remote repository that is on the server to your local repository, which is on your laptop. It will update actually. But sometimes what happens, you may not want to directly pull the code and overwrite your local code actually. You may want to see what are all the changes that have been made by different developers and that are available on the remote repository. So that means you verify and then you pull the code rather than without verifying pulling the code. So for that purposes, you can use uh, this guy doesn't have access to, what do you say, he doesn't have access to the repos. Okay, only the boards actually. Let me go ahead and first give the permission. Okay. So this way you will see the permission related administration as well. So go to my project, that is Web Application 6. This is my admin account for the entire organization. Okay. How you give the permissions? Go to project settings and then permissions, and then go ahead and I would like to add him to the contributor. Okay. And go to members. Let me add my user. So this is my user. Let's click on save. That's it. Now he is a contributor. Now let me log in with that ID. I can simply switch. Let's close the other IDs. Let me close this. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to make some small change to one of the code files and see actually. Why this guy is not, is it overriding? I did not remove him. I should get the repos as well there. I can ask one of you guys to do this, but they can't see the changes, right? I mean, everyone. If they are sharing, I can't see. If I am sharing, they can't see. Application 6, and then go to project settings, and then permissions. Let me remove him from the readers. I don't know whether it, take some precision or something, it will suppress. Okay. Now he should be okay. He's a contributor. Let's not waste time. Let's make him as an administrator, or else. You can check different permissions, right? We can explore it. Let's not waste time actually. So let me remove from contributors, members, and then let me remove this guy from here. Okay, done. He is now admin. You should be able to now access everything uh, in my Azure DevOps project. Login. Web Application 6 project. Not sure why he's not getting this one. Is it because of something? Okay, let me close it. Let me refresh it. He's not getting this permission. Sign out. No, he's an administrator basically. You should be having access. Okay. Now say dev.azure.com. Let's sign in again. Okay. No, I'm not able to see still. There might be some issue. Okay, we'll figure it out. Let's first demonstrate. Let's first demonstrate that fetch and full difference. Okay. So we will use that as part of merge actually. So when you are merging, right, you need to have the different users. Let's first do this demonstration. I am only giving project level. I don't want to give at the organization level. Okay. So let us say that. So I made some change. Okay, we can use this one as well. That's not a problem. Let us say go to some controller, from controller. I can make changes directly from the portal as well. Let's click on edit. I say fetch example, something like this. Just commit it. Now commit. So let me see if this works or not. Okay. Now let's go to Team Explorer. Here, and then changes. You can click on changes, or you can go on sync actually. Click on sync. So rather than clicking on, if I click on pull, right now my local repo, of course I did change with the same user ID and the portal, but my local repo still I don't have the latest actually. Okay. So this is also a scenario, right? Let us see if your Visual Studio is not working the way I didn't get it work on last Friday, right? I mean last week. In the similar way, you may get the issues as well. Okay. So instead of pull, when I say pull, right, it will take the code from the remote repository and it updates my local actually. I don't want to do that. First, I want to review it actually. Now you click on fetch. When I click on fetch, it did not update my code. Rather, it is showing me all the commits that are being available on the remote repository. So you can go and verify if you want to have it or not, and then you can actually pull it actually. Okay, if you want to see the details, you can see view commit details, and then you can open it. See, there is a difference. So on the remote repository, I have the fetch example. On the left hand side is your local repository. It is not there. So this is how you can review the changes on the server before you actually override your local code actually. Okay. So these are all the scenarios you may get into. Let's close this diff, and then I simply say now sync, and then pull. So it has come actually. Okay, I just wanted to do it with a different user, but of course, this just a demonstration purpose. So this is how fetch means you can review the commits on the server and you can see if you want to update or not. I mean, if you want to take some precautions, let us say you already made some changes in your local code. It's okay. I mean, and on the same file, something has been done on the server as well. If you don't want your local code to be overridden by the changes on the one, what you can do, you can stash it, and then you can pull the code. After that, you can continue. Otherwise, if you don't stash and you can pull the code, it will override your local. So these are all the different scenarios. When you know all these commands, right? you can happily sit and think about what is the order of the commands you want to execute. Okay, so that's a simple difference between your fetch and pull. Verification and then pull the code, and then without verification pull the code, that is a direct code. And you see in the stash, preserving your code and work on something and continue after a few days on the same code where you left actually. So these are the scenarios. So now you know what is push, pull, fetch, stash, and you know the branch. And now we will work on the different branches actually. Once we know the different branches, we can get into the branching strategies. Okay. Once we know the branching strategies, then we can work on the pull request, etc. So we will have to go in sequence, otherwise we'll get confused. Okay. Now so let's get into the scenarios like, branches. Right now you have only one branch, right? Yeah. So by default, when you create something, it will create the master branch. Okay. But in reality, so this is how you see, right? You are in the organization, and this is your Azure DevOps project, and you have your repos. Go to repos and click on files, and you will get all your repos. And this is your default repo that's been selected, web application 6. If you want to create another repository, you can create by simply clicking on the repository. Okay, but I don't have the scenario to create multiple repositories because I only have the one code base now. But obviously when you are working in a real-time environment as a DevOps administrator, you need to know the branching strategies because you are the person who suggests the developers how to work with the code actually. You don't write the code, but you will tell them how to work with the code. So let us say right now this is a master branch, and then we will create one dev branch. Just a name, you can give dev key or whatever it is as per the environments you have. And then you give access to the developers only to the dev branch. You should never give developers access to the master branch. Master branch is always fully working functionality. If something is there in the master, that means there are no bugs in that one. So that's how we need to maintain it. So you always have to create some branches from the master, call it as a dev, and then give access to the respective people. So how do you create branch? Either you can, so in Azure DevOps, right? If you are doing some activity, you can do that activity directly from the portal, and you can do the same activity from the Visual Studio. And if you are a .NET developer, you use a Visual Studio. If you are a Java guy, you use a Eclipse, and there are many other IDEs as well. So both the places you can do the similar activities. There is no difference. Okay, it's all how you comfortable. Okay. Now I want to create a branch. So what I'm going to do, since you already have the Visual Studio open, I'm going to create another branch from my Visual Studio itself. Okay, so right now I see only one branch, that is master branch. At the bottom of this page you can see this is my repository. Web application 6 is a repository. You see that symbol, right? Okay, and then the branch is always with your Y symbol. So I only have one branch as of now. Okay, if I want to create a new branch, I can go ahead and click on the new branch. Okay, this is one place, or you can go ahead and click on the branches in your, so wherever you are doing the same thing as well. So now I'm going to create a new branch. You click on new branch, give the branch name. I'm saying dev branch. So what is the basics for your code? I already have the code in my master branch, right? I want to create a branch from my master branch. Okay. Now when you create this new development branch, what happens? All the code that is available in your master will be copied to your dev branch. That's it. Now I'm saying, okay, from where I want to create from the master. Okay, there is a difference here. Master and origin / master. Master means your local master. Origin / master means it's a remote action. Anywhere, if you see origin, right, then that is a remote. Without origin, that is your local. Okay, that's the difference. Very fun. So now I'm just selecting a master only. Okay, now what happens is it. So you don't need to worry about it. Just check out the branch. Okay, create a branch. That's it. Now a branch is being created in my local PC, and if you go to you just refresh your portal, I still have my web application 6 repository only, and even in the branches I still have my master only. You see the option here as well, new branch, but we are creating from the Visual Studio. So I still have only master, I don't have the dev because I created it locally. I haven't pushed that branch to the remote repository. I have to push it. Okay, let's go back to Visual Studio. Now what you have to do, I mean very simple, you expand this one. Still here also you see the same view. You have only one branch on the remote, but on the local you have two branches. Now go ahead to Team Explorer, click on the home button. Either you can click on back or you can click on the home button. Now if you click on changes, it won't show anything because a branch is being created but is not on the remote. When it will show you the changes, if it is there in the source control, because right now it cannot show because you haven't made any changes to the branch which is available in the remote repository. So you will see, you won't see anything. So, but how you check in? Just click on sync. Sync and then say push. Now it is successfully pushed branch dev to origin, means the remote. Now let's go ahead and refresh it. So when I refresh it and just click on this drop down, you have the dev branch as well. Now click on the core, see what you have. Now you are under dev branch, and whatever is code that is there in the master branch is now available in the development branch. You see the default controller, from controller, and also the code, everything is here. Now we have another branch that is for the developers. Now you go and give access to the developers. Actually again use the permissions. Okay, so this is how you create different branches. Okay, there will be some best practices and create it. So this is where a DevOps engineer comes into picture. See, creating a branch, anybody can see a video or a follow documentation. This is a wizard, right? You can simply go and click next, next, next. If not in 1 hour, you will create in 1 day. But end of the day, you will create it, right? But you need, so what's the value addition you will bring in? That is your experience actually. You should be able to suggest what are the branching strategies that you can implement. If you give access to the developers, the QA guy will get and create a QA branch, and even developers, if there are 10 developers, they will go ahead and create their own branches, and it will be clumsy, and you will defeat the purpose of having source control management. Your productivity will be decreased. Now, so one of the branching strategy that you see in older days is one branch per environment. That means you will be having dev environment, QA environment, and say UAT environment, pre-production, production, whatnot. You will not have a number of environments. Depends on the complexity of your engagement. And what people used to do, they used to create one branch per environment. Then you will see dev environment branch, QA environment branch, UAT environment branch. So when you create all these branches, what is changing? Code is same only, right? So when I created now dev from the master, everything is same only. So why should, now you are unnecessarily increasing the amount of code that you are having, means you are making duplicates, and to deploy your code to dev environment, use a dev branch. To deploy your code to QA environment, use the code in the QA environment, QA branch actually. So, but end of the day, your application will be same. Okay, so you are making unnecessary duplicate. The way you are taking the backups on your folders, in the same way you are doing the backups on the source control management. That's not the right way, and it increases the complexity. The more number of backups you have on your folder system, the more confusion you will get into. In the same way, the more number of branches you have on the version control, the more confusion you will get into, and you will get into issues. So you should not create per environment branch, and many people will argue with you. We will talk about it because they don't know the principles. Let us say the funda of DevOps, right? There is simple principle: build once and deploy any number of times. Okay. If you are having n number of branches, what is happening? You are building n number of times, right? For each environment, you are building and then taking the executables and then deploying. That means it is not build once. You are building per environment. So you tell this simple principle, right? Funda is build once, deploy multiple times. We will talk about those advantages as we proceeding further, actually. Okay, but that is the funda you need to remember. Now the dev branch is being created, right? Now the next step is how you switch between different branches. Let us say right now we will close it in a couple of minutes, guys. Go to Solution Explorer. Now my Solution Explorer or my Visual Studio, the code that is there in the solution of what you see is pointed to dev environment. So this is the easiest way, after this Visual Studio and Azure Repos or some other version control management have come into picture. Okay, I don't need to go to the physical folder and open something and do and switch between different folders. Right from here, I can do it. Now in the dev branch, I'm making some changes. Let's say dev branch. Okay, I'm just going and save it and then commit it. These are very simple things, but you need to know as well. Okay. Now there is only one change test. I'll say something. Don't worry about the naming. Commit all and push. Now I'm in the dev branch. I made changes to my dev branch code only. Now if you go to here, refresh it, and then in the dev branch, and I made change to I think I made change to filter config, right? Yeah, dev branch. And I can simply switch from dev branch to master here, and you see the same filter config, that change is not there. So now if I want to make some changes to the code in the master branch, I can easily do it. I don't need to open, multiple studios, multiple folders to make my changes. Right from here, I can make the changes. How you can make? Now I'm in the dev branch, right? Now switch back to master. Click on the master. Now my same code is switched to the master branch. Now go ahead and click on filter. You see there is no dev branch comment here. That means it seamlessly switched your code actually. So let's say now master. Now checking. Test. So the idea of switching between branches here is you are working with multiple branches as a DevOps engineer or as a developer, right? If you need to open multiple studios or multiple folders to go and open, it's a time consuming and confusing as well. You need to do a lot of tabs and then all tab and then switch between studios and you will get confused. But here, right from your single studio, you can switch between branches and make your code changes, and the internal environment will take care of it. Now just refresh your master branch. In master branch, I have my master code, the master command. It's just a verification process. Now I switch between my dev. This is dev branch. So whatever I am doing from the Visual Studio between different branches, it's just a simply click of switching to some branch actually. So it's very easy. So this is how you can switch between branches. Okay, guys, we will stop it for today, and we will work on next working with the different branches, and we will see merge conflicts merging. And anywhere you go to any interview, right, people will ask you one question for sure: what are the different branching and merging strategies? Okay, then we will talk about a couple of branching strategies. When you say branching and merging strategy, it's not just there is no strategy for merging. It's all about comparing previous and current and take the change what you want. But branching, there are strategies like, the traditional studies per environment branch, and you have the branching strategies like a feature, etc. There are a number of branches, and you cannot, and there is no fixed standard. Okay, this standard, this strategy should be used, etc. It depends on the number of team members you have, the type of requirements you do, and the complexity of your project. It depends on many factors. Okay, you need to know those factors. Once you know these different factors, right, this is like your grammar for your any language. Once you know the grammar, you can speak anything, right? In the similar way, we will talk about the scenarios and some fundamental points. There will be some 5-6 points overall. If you know those points, if you have to recommend some branching strategies to any project in, right, you will be able to recommend it. So we will see how you will be able to recommend. That is the role of your DevOps engineer, recommending branching strategies and helping the teams to do the mergings, working with the SCM. You basically, you will be giving all those recommendations to the people. That's it for today, guys. I will stop it here, and then we'll continue tomorrow. And I guess somebody last week was asking how I can see commits done by a developer or something. Guys, you can come here in under repos. You will click on the commits section menu item, then you click on the filter, and this is where you can see. I mean, you can go and select the user, and then you can give the from date and to date. Okay, and then you can check actually. So there is nothing is done by this guy. That's why it is showing empty. And if you can give this guy, and this is from 12:30 to 1:30. And then if you give today, so this is how you can see. I mean, you can query what is being done by what user and at what date, etc. This is how you can see the commit changes. This is easy. And if you want, if you know some commit ID, you can go and give the commit ID, and it just like your regular search actually. So with that, I'll stop it for today. Any questions? Another user is unable to access the product. Probably we were making some changes to like the permissions thing last week. Probably I might have unset something, or while I was working with something, probably I unset some permission from the permissions tab. Actually, we will see, because I have to go through each and every permission, see whether that permission is denied or unset actually. Because I'm working with multiple people. Sometimes I may open some other organization and do changes as well. So for any user, we don't need to give all of them. So only for repos. Yeah. So if you are a developer, I would suggest you to give permission only to the repos and the boards, because obviously he has to access the work items and then change the statuses, like work in progress are done, etc. And then obviously he has to do the coding. The minimum you have to give for Azure boards and then repos. And another thing, once the DevOps pipelines are stabilized, right, you have to give access to the developer to run the build as well. He will only see the build, I mean, queue item. He can only click on the queue, that's it. He cannot do any kind. So based on the person, and if you take the tester, you should be giving access the tester only to the test plans, which we will be talking about, and to the Azure boards. He doesn't need access to the Azure repos. If someone wants to read, let us say test architect or something, you probably give us some reader access. That's it. So it depends on the, that's where if the default groups doesn't serve your purpose, create a one more group and change all these permissions. So last session we seen only the boards, analytics, etc. We have I shown you cross repo policies, etc. There we can set policies for the code level as well. Okay, with that you can know how to give permissions to the different people. Thank you, guys.